I'm genderless. I don't identify as a man or a woman, but you can use he, him pronouns to describe me. Okay, that makes perfect sense. Easy enough. I'm non-binary. I don't really identify exclusively as a male or a woman, so you can just use they, them pronouns to describe me. That makes no sense whatsoever. You're either a man or a woman, depending on what's in your pants. I will not subscribe to this mentally ill, delusional bullshit, you fucking freak.
The person who sweeps and mops the floor every day and takes out the trash is infinitely more valuable than the CEO in the corner office who takes 3-hour lunches. Bus drivers are more critical to the functioning of our society than literally our elected officials who are, for some reason, always on vacation. Do you guys even understand how much of a privilege it is to walk your happy ass into a restaurant, sit down and say, I would like you to make me this, please. And they make you what you ordered with food that was not grown where you are. In fact, probably had to travel several hundred miles to get to where it is, and was harvested by people who make pennies a day and work in terrible conditions without water, without proper equipment, all of these things. But you're still upset that your waitress didn't smile big enough. The dominant philosophy will always be the philosophy of the ruling class. And the ruling class's philosophy is callousness, taking shit for granted, and having an expectation for things to just happen without understanding all of the fucking work that goes into making things happen. Because the ruling class are actually the people who don't want to fucking work, you guys. Like the whole, nobody wants to work anymore. Every accusation is a fucking confession. It's the most stupid, annoyingly effective psyop that they've just run on us. We are the ones who are supposed to break our necks every day going to work. We never, ever, ever stop working. So that people who never clock in can continue to not clock in. Like, that's a no. That's just a fucking no. There are so many people who, right now and throughout history, have created the world that we have. So much work had to happen. So many things had to happen. So many people had to put in their entire bodies and their entire spirits and their entire souls and their entire lives to create the reality that we currently have. Like, people had to die for us to get here. And here is still extremely fucked up. So it makes you wonder, why are people dying like this? Like, what is causing that? How do we become conscious of the fact that that is happening? It's honestly all I think about.
I say this as a climate activist that doesn't like to call themselves a climate activist. The climate movement is the most embarrassing of all the movements because they truly do not give a fuck about workers, tenants, and human rights. You cannot be a self-proclaimed climate activist doing land acknowledgements and not support land back in Palestine. You just can't. You just can't. You cannot be a climate activist and then do brand partnerships with Uber. I interrupted the White House press secretary in July of last year because despite the Stop Willow movement leading to 1.1 million letters sent to the White House to stop an oil drilling project, the largest proposed oil drilling project on U.S. public lands, the Biden administration, who promised to stop drilling on public lands, still approved it. And I cannot tell you the amount of White House meetings that I had after that where I was not taken seriously and scoffed at whenever I suggested that they should not be approving another fossil fuel project. The reason that Greta is so badass is that she actually believes in climate change. She actually believes in climate change, and when you believe in climate change, all the people giving you White House invites and, meetings with President Obama and President Clinton and Leonardo DiCaprio, you're given all these opportunities and then nothing changes and it radicalizes you. When you actually believe in climate change, you know that the climate crisis cannot be solved when 2/3 of our federal discretionary budget goes to militarized projects that displace indigenous communities and exploit land and resources. If you actually believe in climate change, you know that the majority of investments going to the auto industry to build EV Hummers is not going to solve the climate crisis. If you actually believe and want to combat climate change, you know that it has to come from workers. So you will not partner with companies that exploit these workers and union bust. Believing in the climate crisis means evolving tactics when they no longer work. Believing in climate change means not asking nicely to the people that are currently causing the climate crisis, but rather forcing demands through collective action, through worker power and tenant power. The climate movement cannot win by talking about molecules, by talking about CO2. We combat the climate crisis through centering people, and we are not doing that. And it's really embarrassing.
Being a billionaire is immoral, this we know. But sometimes I encounter capitalists who don't think that that is true. And I always use the following analogy to explain to them why it's immoral. And by the way, this is a great trick for analogies. If you take something that seems really big, that someone doesn't understand, you bring it down to like a really small grounded level, you can typically show your point a lot easier. So here's the analogy. You live in a small community of people who are hunter-gatherers. Everyone has their job that keeps the community thriving and alive and sustained. And you're one of the people whose job it is to be a hunter for the community. And you benefit very directly from other people's jobs in the community, like the people who take care of the kids, the people who take care of like your shelters, the people who know how to make tools, the people who keep the fire stoked, all of that stuff. Your job is to go out and hunt animals. So you go out and hunt animals. And one day you just happen upon like a herd of animals, a giant herd of animals. You stumble upon them a little bit by skill, but a lot of it by luck. And you got there because you had a full belly from the food that somebody else made you that morning, and you have a full skin of water from the water that somebody else in your village gathered, and you got a full night's sleep because someone is taking care of, your living space and making sure the community is safe so you can have a safe sleep. So all of these factors add up to you just having a really, really good hunting day. And you find a whole herd of animals. And what do? You manage to kill all of them. It's amazing. Every shot you shoot, you hit, and you kill all of the animals. You kill enough food to sustain this community of people for years and years. So what do? You drag all of the animals back to the village, and you start stacking them outside of your dwelling. And you stack them there, and then you sit on top of them. So a bunch of people start going hungry, and they say, hey, we need some of the animals that we helped you get those animals. And you say, no, I caught these. I caught them. Why should I have to share them? They're mine. And meanwhile, you are feeding yourself from the stack of animals. In fact, you're overfeeding yourself. You're getting fat and happy off of this stack of animals. But the rest of them, enough to sustain the community forever. No one would ever have to go hungry again. You sit on top of them and you let them rot. And pretty soon you're surrounded by members of the community, old people, young people, children, dying of starvation in front of you. And still you sit on the stack of animals and you let them rot. And you say, well, but how should these are mine. I caught them. And how would I even distribute them? How would that even work? That is what it is to be a billionaire in today's society. You are sitting on enough money to sustain everyone. It's enough money that everyone could just live and not worry about survival. And every day you choose not to use it to help people survive. Every day people die because they don't have those resources that you are just hoarding. You're never gonna be able to spend this money. You can't do anything with it. You're just sitting on the stack of animals and letting it rot. I have actually found this analogy to be very successful in changing the mind of people who are like hardcore dyed-in-the-wool capitalists. And knowing the way TikTok comment sections usually go, I am certain that there's going to be 1,000 people in the comments being like, well, actually, this, to which I have to say, just go with it, because the overall concept works and is apt. And as I have said, it does change the mind of people who otherwise think that everyone should just get to be a billionaire and not have to share any of their resources.
I remember 10 or 11, the allowance for gender nonconformity was really starting to wean off. And in retrospect, my parents were probably really starting to be like, okay, we have a lesbian, we're gonna have a gay daughter, and panicking and really trying to curb some things that I was allowed to do when I was younger. And I remember one day, I think my dad had seen tampons or something, and it freaked him out. And he was giving me a big speech about how I needed to start wearing a purse, and I think I needed to wear a training bra or something, so I would just wear baggy shirts or something. And he's giving me this big speech about how I need to start dressing like a girl and grow up and everything. And at the end he added, stop running up the stairs like a dog. And I think that hurt the most.
And while we're on the topic, if you're going to make a movie about a weird black girl or a show, let her be actually weird and not just palatable weird. Yeah, she's a little awkward, that's cute. Does she know what 4chan is? Was she on Tumblr? Does she read fanfiction? Yes, she should. Yes, she should. Did she roleplay Hamilton on Instagram when she was 12 years old? Yes, she did. Like, I'm saying, you guys want to be weird, but you don't really want to get into it. Like, you guys really don't want to, you don't really want to get into it. You really don't want to get into it. I don't think you guys want to get into it the way that I'm trying to get into it. If you even want to get into it, we would have gotten into it by now.
But please do. Okay? Toodles.
I just wanted to remind everybody that the United States is 4% of the entire world's population. That means 96% of all living human beings are outside of your country. I promise you, your experiences in Virginia are not the truth of the universe. I promise you, my experiences in Florida is not the truth of the universe. I promise you, your experiences when you went to university in California is not the truth of the universe. Many times, as people who live in America, we fail to understand how truly massive the world is and how it definitely does not revolve around us. And whenever you actually had to acknowledge someone else's existence, you were still the main character. People do food a lot differently and it works for them. People do marriage a lot differently and it works for them. People do prisons a lot differently, crime a lot differently and it works for them. People do work a lot differently than it works for them. But why am I wording it like that? Because if it works for them, that means it could work for you. Learn somebody else's language. Learn how other people understand time, understand sex, understand money, understand community. If you give yourself the chance to explore the world outside of you, not only will you learn more about yourself, about the people around you, but equally as importantly, you'll learn more about this weird blue and green ball that you've been put on.
This ad just came up and I needed to share because this is crazy.
Supports taxpayer-funded sex changes for prisoners.
Surgery.
For prisoners.
For prisoners. Every transgender inmate in the prison system would have access.
It's hard to believe, but it's true. Even the liberal media was shocked Kamala supports taxpayer-funded sex changes for prisoners and illegal aliens.
Every transgender inmate would have access.
Kamala's for they, them. President Trump is for you. I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this.
Kamala is for they, them. Trump is for you. I can't even be mad. I don't know what to say. I've been laughing so hard. I know whoever wrote that line in that ad was kicking their feet and giggling the entire time. Like, they were so excited to use that. Also, what is up with the right making her sound a lot better than she actually is? Like, that survey is from when she was running in 2019. She has not said a single thing about gender-affirming care or trans people or anything this election cycle. But also, trans or not, incarcerated people deserve healthcare. That is a basic human right. And if you're so mad about incarcerated people having free healthcare, consider the fact that we should all have free healthcare. But as an immigrant who got a hysterectomy, can y'all tell me where she's doing the surgeries? Because I feel like I need to be reimbursed. I paid out of pocket for mine.